if you think about the history of the world, until about 700 AD, there was no civilization in the world that really had the idea of using a window to cut out wind and cold. A flat plane or something through which the light could come. Maybe you could use paper, but you can't see through that. So the great classical civilizations like Greece and Rome, and then Islam, and then later China and Japan, they never had the idea that you could have a house which could have spaces through which you could look, but you wouldn't be affected by the elements. So that the development of crown glass and window glass is almost exclusively a West European invention and development, particularly a North European invention because of the cold. That may be one of the reasons why they didn't develop very much in Italy and Spain and so on, so much. You needed something that would stop the cold, basically, in churches and elsewhere. The effect of developing something like this are immense. It's very difficult to really measure them. It probably changed medicine, for example, by making the inside of the house visible. In a dark house, you really can't see the dirt and the diseases and so on. But the moment you have glass, you can do that. Again, it changed the concepts of furniture, space, and so on. You can see this best in paintings, where you see all the clarity of Dutch interior painting, and all those things sharply etched out. It also may have affected art, because in the development of perspective in the Renaissance, the great artists like Leonardo often said, imagine that you're painting on a window. The reality is seen through a window. And they worked out all the rules of perspective and so on by working out the mathematics of painting on an imaginary sometimes, and sometimes on a real sheet of glass. So without that idea of a window and a window glass, it would have been quite difficult to work out the mathematics of painting. So it also obviously extended the working day for workmen. They could work into the evenings with glass windows, and it extended all sorts of aspects of life. Another area obviously is stained glass. The magnificent medieval cathedrals with their stained glass altered concepts of religion and provided symbols for ordinary people. So it just suffused people's lives, and of course best windows, you don't notice they're there, so it has the property of the best of glass, which is that most people didn't even realize how important it was. But these early windows were obviously quite precious, so that's one of the reasons why window glass used to be carried around by people. They'd sort of take it from one house to another because it was too valuable to leave in the last house. The great window revolution in England really occurred in the 16th century, and again it allows changes in house architecture, another effect, because you can then let the smoke go up a chimney. If you have windows, in many societies the smoke goes out through the windows, but you then have the development of the chimney because you couldn't let the smoke go out through the window. So it alters perception, it alters comfort, it alters working hours, it alters religion, every part of human life. But not in China, not in Japan, not in India, not in Islam, not in South America, not in Australia, not in South Africa. Just in this wet, cold, miserable part of northwest Europe, the great window revolution occurs, and that's out of crown glass.
Relative to other things like coal and iron, I mean, how important are you saying glass is?
Well, it's impossible to separate them because, for example, many of the developments of glass, certainly in the later period, was impossible without coal because you've got to coke and coal smelting, so you couldn't have had the later development of the English glass industry without coal. Likewise, the fusing of iron and glass was very important in the Industrial Revolution. You couldn't have one without the other. But I think that's one thing you could say, is that in terms of human mentality, the way people think, and after all, Homo sapiens sapiens, the wisdom and the thought and the intellectual and imaginative side of human beings is their best asset, and their best physical asset is their eyes. So that in terms of what happens to the brain, which is ultimately what makes humans different from many other species, glass has a far greater effect than iron and coal. Coal and iron make power available to people in various forms, and power is terribly important, but in the end, glass, which alters the way we perceive the world and what we know, if I had to be on my desert island and throw out two of them, I'd throw out coal and iron and leave glass.